I'm Christina Schull, Vice Chair of the 2012 Board of Body Art Practitioners, and in combination with the Oregon Health Licensing Agency, we're going to show you how to follow some of the new regulations, including sterilization techniques, hand washing, and glove changing. Okay, hand washing must be done with a liquid antibacterial or antimicrobial soap. Apply it to all surfaces of the hands, including back of the hands, wrists, between the fingers, and lather for about 30 seconds. Hands must be dried with a disposable paper towel. Reusable towels are not approved for hand washing. This can also be done with an air dryer depending on the facility. Another thing in the new regulations besides hand washing is also the ability to use hand sanitizer between glove changes when that is more readily available. There are a couple different versions of hand sanitizer wipes and dispensing gels. And these can take the place of hand washing between glove changes during the same procedure. Immediately after washing your hands, you are now good to don gloves. Gloves should be pulled out one at a time from the cuff, minimizing your contact with hand to glove. Once you have a glove on, use that to pull the other glove from the cuff and don your second glove. Any adjustments that need to be made need to be done once both gloves are on. Do not just one of your gloves barehanded. All hard surface disinfectants must have the ability to kill tuberculosis. You need to read the bottle to discover how long the contact time is on surfaces. In this case, the contact time says to use second germicidal wipe, thoroughly wet surface, allow to remain wet for 2 minutes to let air dry. So what we're going to do with this, we're going to do our first pass to remove any gross debris off of our tray or our non-porous procedure surface. We want to make sure to wipe all surfaces, including the sides of the table and the tray. Then we're going to do our second pass, and we need to use enough wipes to allow the disinfectant to stay wet on the surface for a full 2 minutes. Same as with the wipes, this will require 2 passes. One of those is going to be to remove gross debris. The second is going to be to actually clean the surface. With spray disinfectants, it's highly suggested to spray into a paper towel. This prevents any contaminants on the surface from becoming airborne and also makes it a little safer for you, not having to breathe in the chemical as much. Just like the first time around, the surface does need to become wet enough to allow this to stay for a full contact time of 10 minutes. All jewelry for initial piercings must be pre-sterilized and individually packaged. For example, all individually sterilized jewelry. There's a couple options for how you sterilize your jewelry. There is our indicator, or we can also sterilize items separately. with our indicators as well. All jewelry must be dated and labeled by the person who packaged it, and all pouches have a 1-year shelf life. One of the biggest changes we've made to state regulations this year is the initial jewelry for standard body piercing. How to read the mill certificates is important. These are required to be on site for all jewelry that you carry for initial piercings. An example from one company, this is for steel. This is going to be the ASTM F138 that's going to match the ASTM F138 in the standard. These certificates are required for every piece of jewelry that you carry for initial piercing. This is a full book of certs. Each certificate represents a different material from a different company at a different gauge. You'll also find that there are going to be different certificates for solid stock versus hollow or curved stock. Another new change to Oregon is the requirement of internally threaded jewelry for initial piercing. This requires that all jewelry is threaded on the ball. This internal thread is important to ensure that the part of the jewelry that goes through the initial piercing is smooth and doesn't have any serrated edges. Both ends of your jewelry should look the same way, and all balls should screw into the jewelry instead of onto it. Externally threaded jewelry can be sold for healed piercings, but cannot be used for initial piercing in the state of Oregon. After sterilization, all sterilized instruments and tools must immediately be stored in a dry disinfected cabinet or container. This is one example of a cabinet or drawer that's fully enclosed. This is an example of a cabinet that's also used to store sterilized instruments. All loads must be ran with a steam sterilization integrator. That also matches our sterilization log that has the date, batch number, what we ran, whether it was a pouch or an unwrapped cycle, pass, and the initials of the person that ran. All sterilization logs and integrators must be made available to inspectors at all times upon request, and integrators must be kept for 60 days. This is just one system that we choose to do. We keep them by month and week, and any of these are available to be shown at any time. Reusable instruments that have been used for a procedure need to be sterilized. You bring your tool bin back into your sterilization room. Whatever fluid you're using to soak your tools, whether it be an enzymatic foam, an enzymatic cleaner, or a disinfectant, needs to be carefully drained. Any tools that are going to require any sort of scrubbing to remove gross debris, this needs to be done before the ultrasonic. Scrubbing needs to be done underwater or very gently away from you, down low in the sink. For piercing, scrubbing only needs to be done on tools that do still have blood or gross debris on them. After scrubbing and visually inspecting all tools, reusable tools go into an ultrasonic cleaner. With all tools open in the hinged position, running your tools while they're open allows for cleaning of all surfaces, including any sort of teeth and in the hinges. And any small instruments, such as piercing tapers, can be put in some sort of basket. The tools are then loaded into your ultrasonic and ran according to manufacturer's instructions. While this isn't a state regulation, an industry suggestion is to use a shower cap or other protective barrier to minimize any sort of spray that you'll get from your ultrasonic. Your ultrasonic has ran its complete cycle. Tools are to be taken out, thoroughly rinsed, and laid out to dry. Tools must be fully air dried before being packaged. And to ensure drying of all surfaces, tools must be laid out to dry in the open position. Once your tools have been completely air dried, they are to be individually packaged in sterilization pouches that contain an indicator, and an integrator is to be ran in the load as well. All tool pouches must have today's date, this is an unrun bag that has today's date, the batch number, and initials. All hinged instruments must be ran in the open position. Peel pack must be thoroughly sealed. The integrator must be ran in the load. This is an example of an unrun integrator. There's no black. After all of your instruments have been pre-packaged, load your autoclave according to manufacturer's instructions with your integrator. Select the appropriate cycle. In this case, it's the pouch cycle. Do you have your ID with you, sir?
Yes, I do.
Well, thank you. In Oregon, you must have a valid government-issued ID. You must be at least 18 years of age to get a piercing. If under the age of 18, we must have the parent or legal guardian present, and they must have an ID available. For piercing, you must get a copy of the ID.
Thank you.
You must verify that the person you are looking at looks like the person in the picture. You must verify that they're over the age of 18 and that it is a government-issued ID. On your client record, there are questions you should ask to make sure that your client is appropriate to get pierced. There are numerous things that your client record needs to include. Things such as questions about their medical history, acknowledgement of various aspects of the procedure, signature date, name, address, phone number, date of birth, practitioner name and license number. In addition to the client record, there's also an informed consent that we will be doing as well. This can be a separate document found on the OHLA website under forms, or as long as you have all of the requested information, it can be included in your client record as well if you choose. The new informed consent paperwork is a recent addition in 2012. The informed consent has a basic list of procedures, alternates, risks, and questions. Your client needs to read all of this over. There will also be a spot for them to put questions, and the practitioner needs to provide a response. In this case, my client has asked me how to prevent an infection. I'm going to verbally communicate to him. Infections are usually caused by bacteria and germs. If you minimize touching your piercing with dirty hands, if you minimize other dirty things touching it, clean pillowcases, make sure you keep products out of it, keep your clothes clean, all of those things are going to help minimize infection. In addition to my verbal response, I'm also going to write this on his informed consent. I'm going to make sure that he has initialed each one of the applicable items and that he has signed and dated. Now, the client will also receive a copy of this informed consent. Okay, in addition to your written aftercare, that is the copy of your informed consent.
Thank
If
you.
you have questions at any time throughout the procedure, please let me know. All right, Danny, so I see here on your release form that you have had caffeine today, no alcohol or ibuprofen, no medical conditions, no sensitivities. Everything looks great. Do you have any questions for me before we begin?
No.
Excellent. I'm just going to start off setting up. We have a tray barrier to minimize contamination of the tray if any contaminated instruments were placed on it. Everything we're using for the procedure has been sterilized. Our Q-tips, gauze, toothpick that we'll be using for marking. And our sterile jewelry. We're also going to use a tool to tighten down the balls, and that way we have a tool so we can show you later how to process them. Now these packs are called peel packs. They are designed to be peeled open. You want to avoid breaking things through the pouch, as any airborne contaminants that may be on the outside of the pouch are going to be exposed to your sterile instruments inside. Any antiseptic solutions used for cleaning the procedure area need to be dispensed in a manner that prevents any contamination of your unused product. All single-use items must be dispensed of in a manner that keeps them clean, and anything intended for single use must be disposed of. For our marking instrument, I'm going to be using Gentian Violet, which is a non-toxic ink. There are also different pens, skin scribes, and various other methods used for marking the skin. And we have one more final single-use item. And finally, we're using some sterile gauze to dry the area. I'm doing my marking with a toothpick and my Gentian Violet to create a little dot. Now let's crucial that we have one more glove change before the piercing. You want gloves that have not yet been exposed to any other surface to be the first thing to touch your sterile needle and jewelry. Before the procedure, I am checking my internally threaded barbell to make sure that both balls fit appropriately. While it's not a state regulation, it's just a good suggestion to always make sure that all of your jewelry fits and it's compatible before the procedure. I'm going to be lubing up my single-use disposable needle. Okay, give me a very deep breath in through your nose. Now with my internally threaded jewelry, we're going to be pushing the needle out with the jewelry. And the needle gets immediately disposed of into a sharps container. Needles should never be reused. They must be disposed of immediately after use. Now, my tool that we decided to use for tightening of the balls. Once the balls are tightened and I no longer need my tool, it's considered contaminated after touching my piercing, and it's immediately put into an isolated bin for sterilization later. Upon completion of the procedure, all garbage is disposed of. This is a good example of a double bagging technique. You can put all of your garbage in one hand, pull your glove over it, pull the second glove over that, and that will qualify as double bagging. This is usually the time that I prefer to go over aftercare. Aftercare can be done at the counter, it can be done before the procedure or after the procedure, and any combination of those. Usually we prefer to go over it more than once, make sure the piercing has a good knowledge of it. So what I'm going to have you do for your cleaning is mix 1/4 teaspoon sea salt with 8 ounces of warm water. Make sure you follow the instructions here. Too little sea salt is not going to be strong enough. Too much sea salt is going to irritate your piercing, can dry it out. Make sure you follow the instructions here or on the aftercare sheet that I gave you. You're going to get a cup or bowl of that. You're going to soak your ear down in it between 7 and 10 minutes, twice a day. No rotating your jewelry. Your skin will not stick to it, contrary to popular belief. Do not touch your piercing with dirty hands. It's the #1 cause of infection. Do you have questions about anything that we went over?
How soon can I change the jewelry?
Generally, we suggest giving it at least 2 to 4 months before changing your jewelry. You can always come in, we'll do a free consultation and see if you're ready to have it switched out.
Perfect.
Any other questions?
No.
Awesome. There's your bag of sea salt. You've got your written instructions from earlier, correct? Awesome. Now,
Set to go.
state regulations are not too particular about the type of aftercare that's given. The important part is that you give aftercare explaining what products need to be used, how long they need to be used, and how often. Thank you for watching the video. We hope that you learned a lot about the new state regulations. If there was anything in this video that you didn't see or you have any further questions about, please feel free to contact the Oregon Health Licensing Agency.